Hello, I'm Francis Seeley from GlobalNet21, and in this video you're going to see Olli-Pekka Heinonen, who was a Minister for Education in Finland. Now Finland has been considered a country that has a really good education system, a good case study, a good practice, and we wanted to involve him in a meeting so he could tell us about what they do there. In this country, we feel our education system is very often not very good. It's not fit for purpose. It's not keeping up with the needs of the 21st century. Finland, on the other hand, has an education system which is considered one of the best in Europe. And unlike the British system, it's very decentralised. It empowers and engages students and teachers. It trusts teachers to take decentralised decisions. It's also decentralised in municipalities. And it doesn't base itself on a very rigid examination system. So all the things that happen in this country, Finland has moved away from, and they've been incredibly successful. So we wanted to talk to Olli to find out how he did this, how they did it, the impact it has, and what the results were. So let's listen to what he said, because it's a very interesting presentation of how Finland has developed a really good education system.
To tell about the Finnish education system, I think I have to start shortly going back in the history. Finland celebrated 100 years of independence last year. And actually, when first the ideas of Finland becoming independent came up about 150, 160 years ago, there was a very strong idea that for Finland to be a nation among nations, what is needed is to make sure that the whole population knows its own language and culture. So there was a kind of an idea that educating the whole population would be a means to become a nation, become independent. So for that reason, you can say that the Finnish kind of national identity and education has a lot to do with each other. So they are kind of interconnected. Already in the history before that, there's been kind of strong methods how to make sure that all Finnish people educate them. It's very popular these days to talk about nudging, but it was already actually 300 years ago when nudging in Finland was invented, and there was a very strong push used because everybody had to be able to read in order to get married. So there was a kind of a very strong incentive to make sure again that everybody in the Finnish society would kind of have the basic skills to cope with in life. So I would say that the most important principle in the Finnish education system is equity and equality. It is so important that in the Finnish parliament, there are no disagreements about this, but all political parties very strongly unite on the idea that we must take care of the fact that every child has the possibility to kind of meet the full potential that he or she has. Another issue that is very central in the Finnish system is trust. And By trust, I mean that it is a kind of a value that goes through the whole education system. It starts, I would say that we have a kind of an education system where there are kind of 4 different, very important perspectives. And the first one being the perspective of the national policy making. In Finland, the national policy making consists of the basic legislation on education and then the core curriculum that my agency, the Finnish National Agency for Education, is responsible of. And when kind of, I would say that those are the main ways to implement national education policy in Finland. We differ from many countries in that sense that we don't have any inspection systems in Finland. We abolished the system in 1990s and nobody has been missing it since. We don't have any national tests, none in primary education. We have only a national test, the first and only national test at the end of the secondary level general education, which is the so-called matriculation test, which is also used, the results of the tests when the kind of applying for university level is kind of decided upon. The third thing that we are missing in Finland is that we don't have any kind of national decisions on textbooks or books that schools are using, or any material that the schools and teachers are using. So it's entirely up to the teachers to decide that what methods and what tools and what materials they are using in their teaching. The national core curriculum, it sets the targets. It sets the targets that must be met in different subjects, and also the targets that must be met in what we call kind of transversal competencies, such things like critical thinking or creativity or the computational thinking. Then how those targets are met, the national curriculum does not say anything about. But then we come to the next level, to the second perspective, which is the level of the municipalities. And the municipalities, they have a lot of autonomy in making decisions that how schools are run in their municipalities. We have a lot of municipalities in Finland. There's about 300 of them. And there are very small municipalities also. So the decision making concerning educational school issues is very close to where the people are living. The thing that where the Finnish education system is the best among the kind of OECD PISA results is the thing that the difference in outcomes between individual primary schools in Finland are the smallest in the world. So for us, the idea or the concept of competition between schools is entirely unknown. We don't have that discussion in Finland when we're talking about primary schools, and it's kind of very important for us thinking that where we'll be living inside Finland, the school doesn't play a role when they are deciding. That no matter where they will be moving or where they will be living, the closest school must be a good school. And that is still the situation in Finland. And the municipalities, they make their local curriculums together with schools. So that's the kind of tool that where the kind of ideas and targets of the core curriculum from the national side, national level, are kind of made concrete. Then we come to the third level, which is the school and pupil level. As I said, the teachers in Finland have a lot of autonomy. And that is possible because all teachers in Finland have behind them a master level degree, which consists also having the abilities to use the newest evidence and research on teaching and learning. So the teachers in Finland are, by identity, they are developers of teaching and learning. So for example, when we're talking about developing the education system, the teachers' union and, for example, my national agency, we feel that we are on the same side of the table. That we're both talking about that what are the things that should be developed in the education system, and there's no kind of confrontation in that sense. The teacher occupation in Finland is highly valued. It's been that way for a long time, and it remains to be that way. And what does it mean in practice? It means that the society around schools, they value the work that the teachers are doing. And it also means that it is quite challenging to to study to be a teacher in Finland. Actually, it's more difficult to go to study being a teacher than to study being a lawyer in Finland. So it's about every 1 out of 10 that gets in of all the applicants. So there's a very kind of strong kind of motivation to become a teacher. The trust issue, which I mentioned, it goes to the teachers. So there's a lot of trust there. But actually it does not end there. But there's the trust that goes all the way to the pupil, which means that our education system kind of very strongly emphasizes the motivation for the pupil to take charge of his or her own learning, to use, for example, assessment as a tool to strengthen the self-assessment abilities of a pupil. Assessment or evaluation in Finland goes so that it is actually something that happens all the time. It's not something that you get a number at the end of the term, but it is something that happens every day between the teacher and the pupil. And it kind of is very manifold. There are different forms how that evaluation and assessment happens. Actually, in Finland, it is so that number in different subjects must be given only at the end of 8th grade. So the grades 1 to 7, the teachers and the schools can decide whether they use kind of verbal assessment or whether they use numbers in their kind of final assessments. But as I said, that kind of at the end of the term assessment is only a small part of the assessment which happens all the time. And then we come to the very challenging question that I think that was very well touched upon in the presentations we just heard. And that's the question that how is it possible to kind of base the teaching and learning in every school to the growth mindset and not to the fixed mindset. What I mean by that is that still it's so strongly in our kind of mental models that some are born more talented and more creative and others aren't. And that's the way it is, and that's the way it should be. And that's not something that we believe in Finland. That we think that every child is intelligent, but we are intelligent in different ways. And the question is that in the teaching and learning, that we can find the different ways of being intelligent and being creative and kind of finding each child's own potential. And then we come to the kind of core professionalism of the teachers. And that is to being able to kind of cope with the whole group, the whole class, and at the same time seeing the different individuals and supporting them in the different ways that they are needing. In Finland, the question of special support is such that actually it is kind of described so that every pupil has the right to special support, which means that it's not something that it's only kind of when somebody is having trouble in something which is then given. But we know that everybody at certain stages needs special support, and that should be given and be the right for every pupil. So kind of this is the kind of trust system that the education system in Finland is based on. And if I, at the end, could say a few words, what I see the challenges in our system from here on. I see that there are challenges. And for example, the OECD is saying about the Finnish system that you will be in trouble because the needs and kind of starting points of different pupils will be so much more diversified than they have been earlier. And I think they are right there. But I don't think that the way to kind of tackle that situation with more diversified needs and backgrounds of pupils is to kind of make a reform where you try to kind of more strongly centralized steer what's happening in every classroom. But I think that the question is that how we can support the teaching and learning that happens in each classroom. And there, I think what I am seeing, that what I have seen throughout my career with the education portfolio, is the fact that so often we have kind of education reforms on the national level that never touch the reality of the classroom. That there's a disconnect that happens there. And what we have to be able is that we have to be able to create a coherent view between the teachers, the principals, the growth community of the child, the municipality level, and the national level, that what are the priorities that best support the teaching and learning. And then with a long-term determination, together in all levels, implement that kind of a policy. And what I'm seeing is that there's a kind of a lot of anxiety, and there's to some extent also kind of fatigue, and how would I say, exhaustment also in some teachers in Finland, that there are so many expectations from the society around that they should kind of fulfill. That, and they are kind of small pieces of expectations that everybody should be met in school. And I think we should somehow, with the coherent policy I was referring to, try to also kind of build a kind of a community of practice in schools, with also kind of an umbrella that the teachers and the schools would have also a kind of a calm possibility to do what is the most essential things to be done in order that the teaching and learning happens in all schools. And that also in the future, all schools could be the best schools across the nation. And so, for example, I see my own role as in every way trying to build trust in these different levels, to kind of find a shared language that we're talking about the same things, and then to kind of find a learning path that we could kind of together find the solutions and have a kind of a coherent policy. So that's what I see, that what's the big challenge in front of us. I don't think we have any kind of secret recipes for the future of education, but we are very committed to kind of starting the learning path together to make sure that we could have a good system in Finland also in the future. Thank you.